Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm taking you to the Master League, where a trainer has fully maxed out a ZAPDOS to level 50 with one goal in mind: to hunt and destroy Kyogre and Zacian. Now, these battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, ZACAttack, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now, ZAPDOS at level 50 is just shy of 4,000 combat power, so it's definitely not a Pokemon for climbing, but this trainer, against all odds, mentioned they were able to climb several hundred elo with this triple Z team and make it to veteran. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches. And in game number 1, he picks up a very strong lead, Zamazenta into Palkia. Opponent safe switches into Lunala, and this looks like trouble. Lunala is very strong neutrally into this team. Zekrom is definitely the best answer, but Zekrom can really only win the 2s. However, getting a shield call right on a Moonblast does definitely help Zekrom. The Dragon Breaths haven't quite put it into Fusion Bolt range yet, but the hope is that the opponent will respect the potential outrage, and they do. Now Zekrom should be able to double shield, farm up to the back-to-back Fusion Bolts, and guarantee switch advantage. And switch advantage against the Palkia is very nice, but the opponent actually saves Lunala, and they end up catching a Fusion Bolt onto the Palkia. Now that could be problematic a little bit later, but Zekrom banks an outrage, and in comes Zamazenta. Zamazenta gonna look for the full Ice Fang farm down. Palkia's Aqua Tail's really not gonna do much here. Zamazenta is very, very bulky. Palkia able to make Aqua Tail number 2, but as long as they don't make it to a third Aqua Tail, Zamazenta's really not gonna mind. Zamazenta does get that full farm down, exiting with a ton of loaded energy, and the opponent reveals their final Pokemon in the back is Zacian. Behemoth Bash is going to connect onto Zacian. There's the pivot into Lunala, but Lunala is going to be immediately met with the Behemoth Bash. Behemoth Bash will be shielded. The opponent fires off energy trying to predict a combo play with the Zekrom, but no combo play comes through. Instead, in comes Zekrom. Fusion Bolt will be able to take the knockout, and in the back, ZAPDOS should be able to handle Zacian. In comes Zacian, but unfortunately, Zacian is completely walled here by the ZAPDOS. Close combat, resisted. Behemoth Blade, resisted. Zacian goes for the Behemoth Blade. It's such an efficient attack that it does not look resisted, but ZAPDOS survives, returns fire with the Thunderbolt, gets the Thundershock down, and that is a good game. Hopping into game number 2, picking up a very negative lead, Zamazenta into Kyogre. Immediate safe switch into Zekrom. Zekrom going to be answered with Palkia, but the opponent was honestly very slow on that counter swap. Zekrom was given a massive energy head start, and now Zekrom can use that to punish Palkia. Palkia shields up and immediately undertaps a potential Spatial Rend. Shield comes up from the Zekrom, and that proves to be a very wise call. The Dragon Breaths have done enough damage that Fusion Bolt will come very close to securing the knockout. Fusion Bolt will be shielded. Can Palkia get the farm down? Yes, they can, as unfortunately, Zekrom faints with Fusion Bolt number 3. This is a perfect opportunity though. The Palkia has been baited out, Zamazenta is going to get a very nice farm down, and ZAPDOS is going to have a shield advantage. The hope is that it's going to be Zacian in the back, because if it is Kyogre plus Zacian core, that is something that ZAPDOS with a shield should be able to handle. Zamazenta finally farms down, in comes ZAPDOS, it's Zacian in the back, and this game looks like it's a win. Even though Zacian can output a ton of resisted damage here, ZAPDOS is very well positioned. Thunderbolt crashes into the Zacian. Zacian can return fire with the Behemoth Blade, but Behemoth Blade is going to fail to take the knockout. ZAPDOS able to hang on. ZAPDOS going to look to farm up massively. ZAPDOS trying to farm the Zacian into Drill Peck range, so the shield will come up as Zacian does go for the close combat. ZAPDOS farms to 100 energy and fires off Drill Peck. Drill Peck will secure the knockout onto the debuffed Zacian. In comes Kyogre to be immediately met with the Thunderbolt. This is gonna hurt. Thunderbolt connects, that's big damage. In comes Zamazenta, but Zamazenta loses charge attack priority. Did Kyogre make it to the Origin Pulse? They did not. It's just an avalanche, and that's not gonna cut it. Zamazenta, standing strong, takes the knockout with the close combat, and despite the very bad lead, they're able to get the win. Picking up a tough lead in the next match, Zamazenta into Zacian. 2 better answers in the back, so there's an immediate safe switch into the Zekrom. This matchup is pretty terrible for the Zacian. Zacian really can't do much here. Zekrom farms up, gets the charge attack priority tie, and that is massive. The opponent's going to fire off the close combat, but now they're trapped on the field at -2 defense. They're going to be required to give a shield back here, or they're going to lose almost their entire Zacian. They put up the shield, they go for a second close combat. Close combat will simply not take the knockout, so Zekrom is going to no shield. Opponent sends in their own Zekrom trying for a catch, but instead, they're going to be taking an outrage and getting one shot. In comes Keldeo as their final Pokemon, and there's a quick pivot into the Zapdos. Zapdos very well positioned to close out this game. Keldeo goes for the Aqua Jet, but Keldeo is going to get eaten alive by the Zapdos. Zapdos not going to risk a Drill Peck not taking the knockout, going straight for the Thunderbolt. That takes the one-hit KO. Back in comes the Zacian. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. We move to the next match, Zamazenta into Palkia, a familiar lead and a very welcome one. Palkia stays in for a little bit, save switches into a Metagross, and it's bad news for the Metagross, as much like Zacian, they are going to be completely walled here. No shield from the Zapdos. Meteor Mash, for being walled, still does a pretty significant amount of damage. Meteor Mash is an incredibly efficient attack, and that is going to force Zapdos to go down a shield. Preserving switch advantage will be very important because Ice Fang Zamazenta does very well into Palkia. Thunderbolt is going to be shielded. It looks like the opponent has plans to try and make a play for swap. Zapdos is able to make a second Thunderbolt. While this won't take the knockout, it will put the Metagross very low. Metagross committing to a farm down, but they're not going to get there. The Drill Peck is available. Zapdos simply too spammy. Zapdos forces the final shield, but unfortunately, switch advantage has been lost. In comes Zamazenta. Zamazenta no shielding. This Earthquake is going to do some pretty considerable damage. Opponent sends in a Zacian, and there's a simultaneous switch as Zekrom hits the field. We know Zacian does not do well here. Zekrom farms up to the back-to-back Fusion Bolts, and it looks like that was a charge attack priority tie. Close combat onto the Fusion Bolt. Fusion Bolt's now going to hit for massive damage onto the Zacian. Zacian will survive, but not by much. Zacian at the back-to-back close combats. Even though Zacian is at -4, this is a tough farm down for the Zekrom. Opponent switches, they try and snipe with the Palkia, and they're going to live to regret that decision. Outrage takes the one-hit knockout, terrific reaction time, and in comes Zacian. Zacian farmed down by Zamazenta, and there's the top left. That was a very tricky game, but the opponent trying to snipe and the quick reaction time into the Outrage put the opponent in a very tough spot. We move to the next match, which saw a very nice lead Zamazenta into Zekrom, but the Lunala save switch is going to prove to be a very big problem. Lunala was answered with Zapdos. At the very least, Zapdos gets to avoid Zekrom, but this is still not a winning matchup for the Zapdos. Thunderbolt is going to be shielded by Lunala. Lunala gets the return fire with the Shadow Ball, and I don't know if Zapdos can survive. Shadow Ball lands. Zapdos does survive, but unfortunately not by much. Zapdos leaves with a parting gift of a Drill Peck, but this Lunala won that matchup pretty handily. In comes Zekrom. This Zekrom should look to go for a one-shield farm down, because Zekrom energy is basically unwallable in the Master League. Lunala gets the shield with Shadow Ball, Lunala gets farmed down, and this is looking very good. Opponent sends in, oh my goodness, they tried for a Peekaboo play. I believe they sent in a Fairy type. They tried to catch a Fusion Bolt onto the Zekrom, but it's an I-swap, U-swap simultaneous switch, switching the Zamazenta into their Zekrom switch. Now Zamazenta going to look to punish with the close combat. That connects and sets up the Ice Fang down. And it was a Fairy type. It was a Xerneas that they tried to catch on. But unfortunately, by failing that catch, the opponent has lost the game. Behemoth Bash connects. That's devastating damage. And there's the combo play with the Zekrom. Zekrom has back-to-back Fusion Bolt. Shield comes up, but it's just too little, too late for the opponent. Zekrom had back-to-back Fusion Bolts. Down goes Xerneas. And not letting that Peekaboo play happen was the game winner. We've got perfect mirror leads in the next match, Zamazenta against Zamazenta. It looks like both Zamazentas are on Ice Fang. The tricky thing about this matchup is even though close combat hits for super effective, close combat does not take the one-hit KO. Looks like it is going to be a charge attack priority tie here. Close combat is going to be no shielded by the opponent, but unfortunately, now this Zamazenta is at -2 defense, which means it would actually get KO'd. Oh, that's a very nice catch, able to save the Zamazenta and catch close combat number 2 onto that Zapdos. Opponent sends in a Shadow Gyarados. A, what is the Shadow Gyarados doing here? And B, why is it being brought into the Thunder Shock using Zapdos? Zapdos puts up the final shield, doubles up on Drill Pecks, and this is where things get interesting. There is energy still stored on the Zamazenta. Back-to-back Drill Pecks will be launched at the Gyarados, and Gyarados is going to have to give up that final shield. They do give up the final shield. There's the combo play, or at least the attempt at it, but unfortunately just ends up catching the Aqua Tail. Opponent's able to pivot out. It's Keldeo in the back. They realize there's not a way they can win that game, and they will concede the match. Tough lead awaits in the next match, leading Zamazenta into Zacian. As before, immediate save switch into Zekrom, and Zekrom's just going to keep farming. Zekrom doesn't get the charge attack priority tie this time. That is a little bit unfortunate. Zekrom puts up the shield. Zacian goes for the close combat, and that's such a beautiful play. Zekrom blind throws the outrage, expecting to switch into a dragon, and Kyurem Black basically gets one shot. Back in comes the Zacian, but that play, the anticipation was perfect. Fusion Bolt rocks the Zacian, there's the pivot, and in comes ZAPDOS. And ZAPDOS will always be able to tank whatever Zacian throws here. Zacian fires off Behemoth Blade, that's not a problem for ZAPDOS. And the Zacian is even low enough that Drill Peck will be enough to secure the KO. Drill Peck is going to be shielded by the Zacian. Zacian farms up. They send in a Veltal, and this is just the ZAPDOS masterclass. ZAPDOS fires off the Thunderbolt. That connects big damage onto a Veltal, but somehow ZAPDOS is not done. ZAPDOS makes another move. Drill Peck takes the knockout. In comes Zamazenta into the Zacian, and that opponent just got absolutely destroyed by Master League ZAPDOS. Picking up a bit of an awkward lead in the next match, leading Zamazenta into Marshadow. Immediate save switch into the Zekrom, but Marshadow has access to Ice Punch. So this Ice Punch will do some pretty considerable damage. There's a pivot out, in comes Dialga. Now this is a very good bait out. Dialga is probably the worst matchup that Zapdos could ever see that's not named Zygarde. Zapdos avoiding the Dialga is a very big win, as Zamazenta is going to be a nice wall to Dialga energy. Dialga will fire off the Roar of Time, but it is going to be resisted. Now Zamazenta can look to go for a full farm down. Zamazenta does exit with quite a lot of residual energy. In comes Marshadow, and Marshadow will immediately be put under pressure from the threat of Behemoth Bash. Behemoth Bash is going to be shielded. There's the switch. In comes Zapdos, but Zapdos is already pretty far behind. Zapdos forced to put up a shield as Marshadow goes for the Ice Punch, and it's the ever-deadly Lunala in the back. And unfortunately, I just think Lunala's neutrals are too strong for this game to be a win. Lunala fires off the Shadow Ball, Zapdos puts up the shield, but Zapdos really thrives when it has that typing advantage. In these neutral matchups, it just gets overwhelmed by Pokemon that have better stat products. Zapdos farms up to the back-to-back Drill Pecks here. Drill Peck into Lunala is going to be no-shielded. There's the switch and a catch onto the Zamazenta. Maybe there's a chance. Shadow Ball is going to be undercharged. Oh, that's a really nice play. They undercharge to get energy on Marshadow because now Marshadow can just Ice Punch the Zapdos and take the win. Drill Peck will be shielded. There's the Ice Punch right on cue. Very nice heads-up play from the opponent. What a beautiful undercharge to set up the perfect farm down for Marshadow. We move to the next match, and what do you know? Death, Taxes, and Zacian lead. Instant save switch, as always, into the Zekrom, and so far this matchup playing out as it normally does. This time the Zacian throws a bit earlier than other Zacians, so they're going to fire off the close combat, and then look to try and go for a Fusion Bolt catch onto Palkia. That's a very risky play from the opponent, because by failing that catch, now their Palkia is so far behind that Zekrom is going to make not one but two outrages and pressure both shields. Switch timers are also misaligned. Zekrom farms up. There's a catch attempt as in comes Zamazenta. Even though Zamazenta doesn't get the catch, Zamazenta is now in the zero shield scenario. So if the opponent ever switches back into Zacian, then Zacian is going to take some pretty considerable damage from Behemoth Bash. Aqua Tail from Palkia is going to connect. Palkia just firing off all of its energy, but this is a very acceptable trade for the Zamazenta. The Zamazenta will fire off the close combat, finally removing Palkia from the field of play, but the Zekrom has been preserved with energy. In comes Zacian, immediate pivot into the Zekrom, and Zekrom will unleash Fusion Bolt. The Zacian is never going to be able to farm down here, so they pivot out. In comes a Veltal gets a farm down, but a Veltal is going to be swiftly answered with Zapdos. Now this is a tough call to make. Are they going for the Oblivion Wing? The no shield calling the Oblivion Wing, that is a very nice call, but unfortunately that means the Veltal has now boosted itself up. Can Zapdos take the knockout? Thunderbolt is super effective, but this is a boosted Veltal. Thunderbolt lands, it doesn't get the KO, but what a catch. Able to catch onto the low HP Zamazenta. Back in comes the Zapdos, there's the pivot into Zacian, and with that catch, that is going to be a win. What a play. Thunderbolt knocks out the Zacian, a Veltal falls, and that's a good game. Hopping into the final match, leading Zamazenta into Xerneas. This is a pretty solid lead for the Zamazenta. Instant save switch, in comes Reshiram, and this is honestly not looking good from the start. Because if this is Xerneas, Reshiram, and Zekrom, then where is Zapdos going to go against this team? Fusion Flare rocks the Zamazenta. Zamazenta will look to hit back hard with the close combat before presumably sending in Zekrom. Zekrom is going to do quite well against Reshiram. Reshiram has farmed up quite a bit of energy, and Zekrom is going to invest the shield. Unfortunately, Reshiram only on Crunch. Crunch really not going to do much. Opponent pivots back into the Xerneas, but Xerneas does get two-shot by Fusion Bolt, and they are so far behind. The Xerneas can't even make the close combat before the second Fusion Bolt is available, and now they're forced to give up their final shield, or just give up their entire Xerneas. They decide to sacrifice the entire Xerneas, so Xerneas has been fully thrown away, and back in comes Reshiram. Reshiram is going to make the last second crunch. Zekrom puts the shield up. Zekrom will get to fully farm down, but no, switch timer's up, and thank goodness, it's a Kyogre in the back. It is not Zekrom. If it was Zekrom, this game would have been over, but instead, it's the perfect Pokemon for this double electric backline to see. Fusion Bolt rocks the Kyogre. There's the switch into Zamazenta. Zamazenta Ice Fangs down Kyogre, and the opponent resigns the match without ever seeing that the final Pokemon in back was Zapdos. All in all, these were some very fun battles, so many thanks to Zack Attack for the battle submission. A trainer named Zach running a Triple Z team. The theme is good, folks. The theme is just good. Now, ZAPDOS, it goes without saying, definitely not a Pokemon for climbing. This trainer mentioned they were able to climb up to veteran rank, and this was actually during one of the earlier rotations of the season. So, they were able to hit pretty early veteran in the Master League with ZAPDOS. Now, I'm more willing to attribute that to the fact that they just played very well, rather than ZAPDOS being a meta wrecker. But it is cool to see ZAPDOS have a bit of a niche, as a Pokemon that just by virtue of its typing is a complete wall to Zacian's moves. Now, because of the massive stat product difference, calling it a complete wall to Zacian's moves does feel a little bit dishonest, just because Behemoth Blade, even though it's resisted, still does well over 50%. Behemoth Blade is a terrifyingly efficient move, but ZAPDOS was able to put in some work in those games. Now, I think the underrated star of the show, because we already know how good Zekrom is, may have been Zamazenta. Maybe I've been sleeping a little bit on Zamazenta. I run a lot of Reshiram, and Reshiram obviously has an extremely dominant matchup into Zamazenta, but into a lot of the other Pokemon, it seemed like Zamazenta was putting up a pretty nice fight. Zamazenta, it's just very, very bulky, and I like the fact that with Ice Fang, it has different coverage than a Pokemon like Zacian. I've trended towards not bringing Zacian on my teams in the Master League. I typically prefer Xerneas, but I think that Zamazenta plays in a very different way, and the next time I play in the Master League, I think I'm going to give Zamazenta a go, because it seems like Zamazenta might be a bit underrated right now. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching today's video, please do help support the channel by leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you have not. And an extra special thank you, as always, to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is so sincerely appreciated. Thank you guys oh so very much, and until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.